Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here. This is the BattleCry. That means it's Sunday night, and I'm where I love to be on Sunday nights, which is with you, the grassroots, because you're the folks who are out there actually doing the work, saving the country. Part of saving the country is to make sure you're in action all the time, that you're not just watching the BattleCry, not just following your favorite conservative celebrities or whatever it may be, but that you're actually in the fight. And so I'm going to give you something to do today that's not political per se. It's not going out and being in action on a political basis, but it is being in action. And that is this. I am going to encourage you to do what I do and try to buy American. Now, I'm going to be really clear. I don't think you can always buy American. It's really rough. It costs more, harder to source goods. Some things you just can't even find that are made in America anymore. I think that's a problem. But I do think that we as patriotic Americans have a duty to buy made in America stuff. When you buy made in America stuff, what you're supporting is American industry. You're supporting your fellow Americans who work in jobs at those businesses. And you're sending a statement that you're willing to work harder, sacrifice a little bit, pay a higher price to buy American made goods. In this time when we're in a global Cold War with China, who manufactures a lot of what's made around the world and a lot of the stuff that we buy in our own stores, whether it's on Amazon or Walmart, this is a patriotic statement. So I recommend that to the extent that you can, you buy made in America stuff. I was out sourcing a couple of websites to do that. You can go to AmericanMadeMan.com. They claim to list over 770 products made in the United States of America. There are also other websites. If you just go on any search engine, I tend to use Brave because I don't really like Google. If you go to Brave and you search American made products, you'll find a bunch of websites, 4 or 5 of them at least, that list American-made products. And I suggest you go out and do that. I do it all the time. I'm being honest with you. I don't always buy American. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's just too expensive. But I do my best to buy as much American-made product as I can. With that in mind, we bring to you my new shirt. You can buy this at shopconventionestates.com. This is my favorite shirt right now with Convention Estates. I'll raise up here. It says All American Man. With all the doubts going on today, what's a man, what's a woman, what's the definition, toxic masculinity, etc., I recommend you sport your All-American Man shirt. Shows a nice burly, buff man holding an AR or some platform like that. Look, I know I always get in trouble. I say it's an AR. It is a stylized sporting rifle. I don't even know whether it's an AR or what it's supposed to be, but it's just a stylized cartoon. But All-American Man. Leave no doubt who you are and where you stand politically by wearing your All-American Man shirt. Go to shopconventionestates.com and you can get it there. This week in the news, Elon Musk made the news again because somehow he always manages to do that. Seems like pretty much every week. And this was for SpaceX. And they launched a Starliner. The goal of the Starliner ultimately is for manned space travel to Mars. That Starliner went up and ultimately at the end of the test, it exploded. Or as Elon and SpaceX said, it had an unplanned rapid disassembly. I love that. Not an explosion. It didn't blow up. It didn't fall apart. It was an unplanned rapid disassembly. You know, one of the things I love about Elon Musk so much is he doesn't mind failure. And this is how you succeed. And this is how you move science and forward. And this is how you make progress at anything. You go out there and you try, and you know you might fail, and you're willing to fail. And as long as you're acting and then learning from what happens, and you know these guys will study this, they'll figure out exactly what happened, and they will make adjustments. They will act, learn, and adjust. That's something we talk about inside Convention of States all the time. So when you look at a guy like Elon Musk, who's willing to put hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars into space exploration, this is a great thing. Even when the rockets explode, it's a great thing. That's not a failure. The media will try and paint it as a failure. The media will say, oh, all 9 Starliner missions have been failures. It's not true. These are successful tests because they teach SpaceX things about what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, how to fix those things, and how to ultimately get men to Mars. I once heard Elon Musk say that the reason he got involved in politics is because he felt man had to be interplanetary and government was getting in his way. And I love that. So he's willing to step up and do the thing. I would say, you're probably not a multi-billionaire like Elon Musk, and neither am I, but each of us has things we can do to move the ball forward in whatever we're doing. And politically, one of those things I mentioned this evening is go ahead and buy American. That'll move the ball down the field a little bit. All right, in international news, Israel continues to take territory in Gaza. This is a very good thing. They are going to take control of all of Gaza. That is going to be an Israeli security zone. Meanwhile, the U.S. has intervened and they're creating aid distribution centers and they're distributing aid. And this is actually an important thing. With the U.S. setting up these aid distribution centers, what this actually means is that aid will hopefully actually get to the citizens of Gaza. You might have seen the news story where they said thousands of people were breaking in to these aid centers to either steal the aid, take the aid, whatever it was. According to those running the aid centers, that was basically fake news. They still have control of the aid centers. They are distributing aid in a reasonable and measured way to folks who are coming for that aid. They are preventing Hamas from getting a hold of that aid and holding it hostage or just feeding their fighters. What this actually means is that the population is going to be fed and they're going to be getting their aid from the United States, not from Hamas. That's going to continue to turn the population against Hamas. Obviously, it's not going well for them under Hamas's leadership. And I think this is a very good thing. There were actually U.S. military gunships, or I don't know whether they were U.S. military or private contractor gunships, preventing people from breaking into these places, firing warning shots. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to start to see the orderly distribution of aid in Gaza. And that's a really good thing, because what that means is we're going to end up with a more orderly Gaza. We're going to end up with Hamas out of power. Nothing good will happen there until Hamas is completely destroyed. Also in the news around Israel, the Houthis continue to fire the occasional ballistic missile at Israel. Israel continues to hammer back, damaging ports, damaging infrastructure. And they have said over and over, hit us once, we'll hit you 7 times as hard. Hit us again, we'll hit you even harder. We will continue to hit the Houthis, and they have the capacity to do this. At some point, they're going to have to, in my opinion, hit Iran, because Iran is who is arming the Houthis. The Houthis don't make rockets. They're a bunch of tribal folks. They don't have factories. They don't have ways to build munitions. All that stuff is coming from Iran. I think for it to stop, they are going to have to hit Iran. I believe that's going to happen ultimately. I know there are folks on the right that are against that. Iran is a bad actor. They fund terrorism all over the region. They fund Hezbollah in Israel's north. They fund Hamas in Gaza. And all over the world, these guys fund terrorism. We're going to have to neuter Iran, or we're going to face Iran for a long time to come. We can't let them get a nuclear weapon. It will not start a nuclear war or a world war. People talk about that. That's not going to happen. Iran has virtually no air defenses. They have a very weak military, other than their proxies, which are largely denuded at this point. We can hit Iran. I would say Israel can hit Iran mostly with impunity, and there isn't much Iran can do about it. It's not going to start a world war. I'm not one of those people that's paranoid about it. And by the way, I'm not a warmonger. I don't want war. I want to use our forces strategically where we need to further U.S. interests. And I believe it is in the interest of the U.S. to neuter Iran. I think that's okay news and really good news. Trump's polling is historic right now, especially among 18 to 24-year-olds. Rasmussen reports that among 18 to 24-year-olds, Trump's polls are at an all-time high. And these are incredible numbers, at an all-time high for the youngest people, 18 to 24, who we all lament, oh, they're so liberal. No, they're turning conservative. Among Hispanics, I've seen numbers between 56 and 59% now in support of Donald Trump. Again, all-time highs. They're all headed in the right direction. They're surging right now. Consumer confidence is up. It looks good for Donald Trump. The polls have been up and down for Trump, which you would expect during a presidency. Things have been a little bit of a wild ride during the Trump presidency, so you would expect that up and down. But right now, the polls look great. That's good for Trump if they continue in this direction. And by the way, it's even good for Congress, who seems to be unable, because of their limited number majorities, to do anything really significant. They passed the big, beautiful bill, which, as I said last week, is big and not so beautiful. But I think this will help Congress in the midterm so that Republicans potentially get a bigger majority in both the House and the Senate. And part of the reason I think the Republicans may be able to do that is because the Democrats, frankly, are such a mess. Now, right now, what they're trying to figure out is how do we become relevant again? They don't have a message. Their only message is anti-Trump, and that appeals to a narrow margin of the base that they need, a narrow band of the base that they need. So they need a platform. What are they for? Are they for not deporting violent, criminal, illegal aliens? That seems like what they're for. They for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who appears to be a spousal abuser, a human trafficker, and a MS-13 gang member. Is that what they're? Maybe that'll be on their election commercials. We're the party of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. We're the party of wife beating. We're the party of illegal immigration. They talk, it's all about due process. No, it's all about getting criminals out of our country, illegal alien criminals. So I don't know what they're going to do. But Senator Alyssa Slotkin from Michigan has an idea. Politico seems to think it's a good idea. She wants to set up a shadow cabinet. In other words, they are going to find a bunch of people to occupy these shadow positions, so they'll have secretaries for each of the department who will then go out and counter the Trump narrative. Now, who are they going to have? They're going to choose real sort of mainstream moderate Democrats to appeal to the people that they lost in the last election cycle, right? One would hope so, but that's not what they're doing. Instead, they're tracking to the left again. And for example, let me give you my favorite example from the list of people they suggest for the shadow cabinet: Bill Nye, the fake science guy, the guy who's not even a scientist, the guy who's a radical leftist, the guy who refuses to say that men are men and women are women, the guy that believes in transgenderism. He's going to be their science guy in the shadow cabinet. I don't know if they'll make him director of Health and Human Services or what his position will be, but he's proposed for this shadow cabinet. I guess I don't think that's going to work with the American people. I don't think that it works for the Democrat base even. I think the more moderate people in the base who are moving to the Republican Party, Hispanics, they're not going to buy any of this stuff. Young people, they're not going to buy any of this stuff. And on top of this, meanwhile, the Democrats plan to spend $20 million to figure out how to talk to guys. Now, the most hilarious thing about that to me is they don't know how to talk to guys. There are guys in the Democrat Party. I mean, sort of, I guess, some of them maybe you could call guys. And they don't know how to talk to them because the way they talk to them is they want guys to act like women. Sometimes they even want guys to be women. And so they're struggling and they need to spend $20 million to find out how to talk to guys. By the way, initial suggestions include things like advertising in video games and not telling men how bad they are and how toxic they are all the time. By the way, that second part, I'm just kidding. They'll keep telling you and us how bad men are, how toxic men are, how terrible men are. And then they'll have the tagline, "That's why you should vote for us." I mean, this is unbelievable. Why don't you just give us the 20 million and we'll push towards a convention of states with it? They're just going to flush $20 million down the toilet. They just can't give up on the idea that men are bad, men are toxic, and it's all about messaging. I mean, this is the thing about Democrats. They believe it's all about messaging, that the reason that you're not voting Democrat has nothing to do with that their policies are bad. They want open borders. They like crime. They want to defund the police. They're willing to support illegal immigrant, wife abusing gang members. That's not the reason you don't like them. You don't like them if you're a guy because their messaging is bad. They just don't know exactly how to talk to you. So they're going to find you in a video game and they're going to run an ad in a video game telling you how wonderful they are and how toxic you are. And they think that's what's going to get you. That's ridiculous. Good luck finding relevance. Now, I got to say, Republicans, be careful. Don't get cocky. This is the place where Republicans are always so good, I would say extraordinary even, at grabbing defeat from the jaws of victory. I know that's backwards, but that's what Republicans seem to do. Poised for a big victory. It seems like they choose the wrong candidates, they say the wrong things, they make big mistakes, and they end up losing despite the odds. So I think the odds right now are in favor of the Democrats for the upcoming midterms in 2026. But I think there are dangers that lurk out there. And so Republicans and conservatives should not take that for granted. Another thing we shouldn't take for granted is that the universities in our country, especially the premium name brand Ivy League, Harvard, Princeton, Yale kind of universities, we shouldn't take for granted that they will ever reform themselves. They never will. It's the same as we believe at Convention of States that the federal government will never reform itself from within. We're going to have to force reform on the federal government through a Convention of States. So Trump feels the same way about the universities. He's absolutely correct. Trump says that he is now going to hit the universities where it counts. And that is, he has put an absolute stop on all student visas, foreign visas. And so what's going to happen now is they're going to review, they're going to take their time, they're going to look at the social media posts and the web pages, whatever folks have who are trying to get foreign visas. And if they hate the U.S., if they're anti-U.S., if they're pro-Hamas, if they're pro-U.S. enemies, if they're pro-terror, they're not going to get their student visa. So this is important because we don't want bad people who hate America coming into the country. I think that's a good thing. We don't want their influence on our campuses. That's a great thing. It's also a great thing because these campuses, these universities make a lot of money off these students. These students pay the highest potential tuition at all of these universities. See, student aid goes out to generally in-state students, maybe other needy students from around the country, but the foreign students generally pay between 80 and 100% of full boat tuition. So that's a lot of money to the universities. It's a big subsidy to the universities. It makes them loyal to foreign countries and foreign donors. And so this helps put an end to that. I think this is a very good thing. Trump continues to kneecap the universities who continue to foster and grow and educate hate against the United States. That's a good thing. I think likely a Biden judge will intervene. Frustrates me, but I think that's what we're going to see. And then we'll have another temporary judicial coup, and it will likely be overruled at the appellate level or the Supreme Court level. It's slow, it's frustrating, but I think that's how this one's going to come out. In more good news, RFK Jr. has now set out to destroy, and he did say destroy, the medical journal industry. Medical journal industry has become completely beholden to Big Pharma. Even the longtime head of the New England Journal of Medicine said they've all been captured by Big Pharma. That means they're fake. These are not real studies. These are studies paid for by Big Pharma, influenced by Big Pharma. They intend to promote all the drugs that Big Pharma creates. They're not doing real science. And what RFK Jr. has said is, number one, the government will no longer submit anything to these journals. So all the research being done that is funded by the government will not be produced. The results will not be produced in any of the big medical journals. He is setting up a medical journal to be produced by our agencies run by RFK Jr. in each of the areas of medical specialty, and they will publish their own literature. And by the way, he has set aside 20% of the budget, his budget, I think it's the NIH budget, for replication studies, because they're going to determine, is this a fake study or can we replicate it independently? And so they're going to work on replicating every study. No study is going to be released that's not being replicated. No advice is going to be given if you can't replicate a study. This is incredible what RFK Jr. is doing. He's taking a chainsaw to the medical bureaucracy, and he's doing everything he can to fix it. It's hard. It's slow. It's slower than I would like. It's slower than you would like. But I think that's what needs to happen. And God bless RFK Jr. for doing exactly what he said he was going to do. In more good news, Gen Z is rebelling. And sometimes rebellion is really good. This time they're rebelling by apparently getting out and becoming religious. I love this. I'm seeing this anecdotally in my own circles. A lot of folks, kids that I know, are getting more and more religious, and they seem to see it as a form of rebellion against a culture that's rejecting traditional values. We know that our modern day culture, writ large, is rejecting traditional values, rejecting family values, rejecting sexual mores, rejecting ethics, rejecting morality, broadly speaking, for a total relativist view on the world, a view based on hedonism, personal pleasure, personal achievement, not what's good for your family, good for your spouse, good for your children. But the youngest generation, 18 to 24-year-olds, are now pushing back against that. In fact, now if you look at conservatives, today's conservatives are 45 points more likely to identify as Christians than liberals are. So in other words, liberals, they have no religion except liberalism. That's it. Liberals, they love liberalism. They love liberty. And by liberty, I mean libertinism. I think their biggest liturgical right is the right of abortion. They support abortion at any age of the baby up until birth, maybe sometimes even after birth. So this is something that they believe in. that they believe in with religious fervor. They believe in consent as the ultimate value. Consenting adults can do anything they want, no matter if it's good for children or society or whatever it is. This is now the Democrat Party. They still are religious, I would argue. It's just their religion is hedonism or liberalism or moral relativity. And conservatives are becoming more and more religious, and more people are becoming conservative because it's the right thing to do, but it's also a form of rebellion. So I love that. I really appreciate that. I think this is great news. I think there's a lot of great news this week here on the Battle Cry. So you should be uplifted. That's what I usually want you to do at the end of the Battle Cry, be uplifted. Remember to buy American. We talked about that, AmericanMadeMan.com. I'm not getting paid by those guys. I don't even know those guys. There are a bunch of websites out there. If you search American Made Goods, make sure you get out and buy American. Now we're going to go to our Q&A, which to me is the best part because it comes from you and you're the smartest. First, I want to remind you to check out COS at Home, Texas Victory Roundtable with Representative Cody Vasut and Jose Melendez from Texas Public Policy Foundation. We'll have COS Texas leaders on. That's June 4th at 8 p.m. You can register by going to conventionofstates.com/at-home. We'll talk about the big Texas victory. You'll hear some incredible behind-the-scenes stories. I'm so proud of the Texas team for everything they did. They're a model for what we can do in any state if we really get together, we really work hard, and we really link arms and do everything together. Also want you to check out Jake Fay's season 1 finale of the Story of series. There's a chance for you to go behind the scenes of Convention of States past states. The latest episode is an inspiring story on the state of Arizona that happened quite a while ago, but Jake is doing these incredible takes on it where he goes through and does the entire story of how that state passed. You can check Arizona out at conventionofstates.com or on YouTube, Rumble, or X. You can see the whole story of Arizona there. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, to subscribe, ring the notification bell. Make sure you never miss another exciting Battle Cry like this or everything else that we put out. Again, like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, send it to all your friends. Make sure you help us increase our subscriptions. Don't forget also, we're still working on Elon Musk to get Elon Musk to endorse. So go to conventionofstates.com/askmark. You can get hopefully Elon on board. All right, I got a few questions here. And again, if you want to ask questions, conventionofstates.com/askmark. Charles Hustle asks, where does the federal government negatively influence our lives? Is this a trick question? It's almost everywhere, Charles. They affect the culture. The Department of Education is polluting our children with woke DEI stuff. The military has polluted our military, the Department of Defense, with woke DEI stuff. They overtax us. They overregulate us. Where? In every single area. They control 80% of the land mass in Nevada. I think it's 60% in Arizona. In a bunch of other states, they control a massive amount of the land. They misuse that land. They mismanage that land. They kick citizens off of that land. And there's just so much stuff that they do. They regulate the auto industry. They regulate the construction industry. Look, they're just involved in our lives in a mostly negative way. That doesn't mean that we, or I don't think there are reasons for the federal government to be involved in our lives. The federal government had 17 enumerated powers in the Constitution, but they're even doing a bad job of those. One of those was to secure our borders, right? To prevent foreign invasion. They haven't done a very good job of that. I would say by letting 20 million illegal aliens into our country, that they have negatively impacted our lives. I would say by refusing to enforce our immigration laws more generally and refusing to deport people, they have negatively impacted our lives. There's just so many ways. I'm wondering if that's just a plant question or you were just trying to be funny. I don't know, Charles. Shane Bernard asks, who's in charge of this country anyway, judges or the president? Yeah, I think that's an open question right now, Shane. I think if we have a chronic case of, as Jonathan Turley called it, injunctivitis, it's out of control. It can't be like this. Last time I looked, there were over 60 injunctions against President Trump just in the first 3 months of his second term. That's outrageous. He already had more injunctions against him by judges than any president in American history. Bad stuff. So I think that fight is ongoing. I think we're going to see the Supreme Court weigh in on it. I don't have a ton of faith in the Supreme Court, but I'm praying really hard that they're going to get it right. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Dave Combs asked, do you think maybe after the fun of midterms, President Trump will announce his support for a convention of states? Well, First of all, Dave, fun of midterms. I'm not sure they're going to be fun. Like I find nowadays elections are pretty stressful. I really like to see conservatives prevail. That doesn't always happen. There's a lot of lies that fly around during election season that really frustrate me. And I do mean lies. The candidates lie about each other. The PACs lie about the candidates and the issues. I find them very frustrating. Hundreds of millions, billions of dollars get spent. A lot of it just wasted, in my opinion. The consultants get rich. So I wouldn't call it the fun of midterms. But after midterms, do I think Trump will endorse? The answer is I hope he endorses sooner. We'll do everything we can. If you're interested in helping us, go to conventionofstates.com/Trump and sign the petition asking Trump to get involved and endorse Convention of States. And I would ask, do more than just endorse President Trump. Get involved. Help us save the country as we're trying to help everything you're doing become permanent, preserve your legacy, get rid of the Department of Education permanently, get rid of a bunch of the administrative state permanently, fix the Supreme Court at 9, put a balanced budget in place, put term limits for staffers, bureaucrats, and congressmen and women in place. Do it all. Trump, we need you. Get involved today. I welcome anybody to join either side of the aisle. I mean, everybody wants more power back at the states, right? If you believe in federalism, that's what you want. So, Dave, I'm hoping he does. Who knows? We do our work. Duty is ours. Results belong to God. That's from me to you, all of you out there in Convention of States land. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week on the BattleCry.